Seeing none.
Seeing none, I'll move forward to our next agenda item. Number 5, request to the Office of Information Practices relating to visiting of the jails and the prisons.
Yes, so I previously was having some trouble getting approval from the Office of Information Practices in order for the commission to tour the collective group into the facilities. I have since received approval, but it is admittedly a long-winded and slightly difficult process. And so one recommendation that was brought up was to make an amendment to our statute that when the commissioners are touring facilities specifically, that they be exempt from the sunshine law. I know it's late in the legislative. So I wasn't sure where commissioners would stand on that, but I wanted to mention it.
Any discussion from the commissioners?
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ted.
Yeah, Kristen, are we going to have to go through this process every time we want to visit a facility
Yeah,
as a group?
yeah.
Okay. So I had a couple thoughts and something I think for the first I think the lawyers will have to interpret. We're going to, it's sort of like an inspection, but is an inspection, the fact that more than 2 of us are going to be together, does that under the legal definition of a meeting constitute a meeting? Because there's a specific definition in the Sunshine Law about what a meeting is. And it has to do with, we got a specific item and we're going to make decisions and that kind of thing. But the tours, or the inspectional tours, is informational for our purposes. So that's the first question. The second is has to do with the what the OIP actually said. And I wasn't sure if they were opposed to the fact that we were conducting these tours, or the fact that there did this apparent dissatisfaction as to how we reached the decision that the public could not accompany us on this tour, and we could.
Had a hard time deciphering that, but that was what it came down to. So once I resubmitted, it was fixed. For your first question, I know Candace is online, so I'll defer to her, but I do want to quickly say that I did touch base with OIP about your exact point, the difference between a meeting and an inspection. And I was told very forwardly that if there's enough commissioners to meet quorum, so 3 or more, then it would be under the Sunshine Law, regardless of the type of meeting, it's still considered a meeting. But I will refer to Candace.
Okay, thank you.
For Kristen. So I have a question for today's meeting, for today's visit at the OCCC. It was approved by OIP.
Yeah.
Now, if we follow these procedures that we're going to follow today with other visits, wouldn't that already be approved?
So I would think that, but the request that I submitted last month when we were planning on going to OCCC last month, that one was approved. The one that I resubmitted for this month, the only thing that I changed was the date. That was the only thing that I changed, and it was not approved. So I want to say yes, but I don't think that that's realistic. I don't think that's reality.
Well, hopefully OIP has a uniform standard that, just change. If we follow procedure that was already approved, I don't see why, but we'll see what they say, I guess.
The one good thing is that George went through and filled out every single request for the rest of the meetings this year. And so we are going to submit those, probably not this week, but next week. We'll submit them all.
And it's similar to this
Yep, and
Visit.
yep, and that way, if there's issues or concerns, we can kind of tackle it hopefully months earlier instead of days.
Kristen, who's our deputy attorney general?
Candace Park,
If she's on today,
she is,
good.
yep.
Welcome, Candace, but our deputy attorney general should be talking to OIP. If there's a if there's an issue, they try to sort it out internally. If we need to take the position we need to take and listen to our deputy attorney general, not necessarily OIP if we respectfully disagree, and then they can sort it out or go to court. So I think we got to do our business in a way that makes sense to us. Am I wrong on that?
No,
Maybe I'm wrong.
no, I don't think you're wrong. I'm just trying to picture what that looks like. But I don't think you're wrong. And I have been talking to Candace about this. She is very aware of the situation. Because specifically I asked her, like, is there an appeal process? Like, what does this look like? And there isn't. There's not an appeal process. The OIP director is the only person who's allowed to even approve these requests. Yeah, but I hear you, Mike.
So there might not be an appeal process, but our AG might have a direct action against OIP.
Yeah. And go talk to the Attorney General of the state of Hawaii so we can do our business.
Ron, what did you call that?
Cheryl's not saying anything.
A direct action, I'm just filing in court.
Okay. I will talk to Candace about that.
Action or whatever.
That happened when probably with Ron too. We were judges and periodically we'd get sued somehow and we had an AG and they always sorted it out. Just because OIP grumbles doesn't mean we should run and cover.
I am not running and covering, I promise you that.
I know that. I'm trying to protect you.
I promise you I'm not running and covering, but at point taken, and I'll make sure to meet with Candace and talk about
Do we want to make an attempt at an amendment
an amendment. Oh, for the law.
Statute.
Yeah.
for the statute?
And you told me that there was something that came in from Candace that I should have seen. I didn't receive that. And so I really need to review that. Candace is suggesting that we amend, if I have this right, Candace, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that we can amend our statute that will allow these visits without having to go through OIP for permission. And it's just, I got to figure out where we would ask that to take place and how we would approach legislators to make a change at this date that would be a significant change.
Okay.
So those are several pathways from the current situation that we're in. One being the further discussion with our Attorney General in trying to resolve our issues with OIP so that we can have a more seamless ability to visit the correctional facilities in Hawaii as a group without any violations to the Sunshine Law, or really work at the language of some kind of amendment to the current bills that we are introducing at this time or are moving through the legislature at this time.
And Candace, I probably I'll be the one to be in touch with you about this. Thank you.
Yeah, and I
If I could speak,
Yes,
go ahead,
Ken.
Candace.
I did give Kristen specific guidance on amending the legislation.
I understand that. It wasn't forwarded to me, so I haven't seen it yet. So I need to review it first. Thank you.
I swear I sent it, but I'll double check.
Anything else, Ted? Before we move on?
A couple of things, couple more more things. Are there two issues that the OIP is concerned about? Number one is our visit itself, the fact that we want, I guess they're calling it a limited meeting because it's not safe for the public to attend with us. And the second is there's a requirement that we're supposed to provide video of the meeting, or if it's not practicable, then an audio recording. Is the OIP concerned with that as two separate issues? What do you think, Kristen? It's okay for us to go as long as we audio it, or are they concerned with the fact that we're going?
There are two different issues. So there's two different approvals that you have to get. One being able to tour collectively, and then two, you have to request to specifically waive the audio and video. So the commission did both of those and I submitted, and OIP initially denied the audio recording because they were saying that there's no reason not to. So I did talk with Tommy Johnson, who was really, really helpful and very supportive. He sent me all of the policies and procedures, making it very clear that that was not going to be acceptable. And so I was able to include that in my correspondences with OIP, and that was how the audio piece was left alone. But they are two separate issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
My second question has to do with, after reading OIP's email, is there anything specific is there any specific decision the commission itself has to reach for each visit before you submit another request to OIP?
So the commission has already done that.
Okay.
I don't know if you recall back in, was it September?
I remember we did it, yeah.
Yeah, so I did get prior approval that we could do that all in one meeting. All the requests have to be separately sent, so I'm gonna
Okay.
send emails, but it's okay that the commission did it that way. But
Okay.
yeah, but I will be sending all of them very quickly here, just to make absolutely sure, and we should be good to go for the rest of the year.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that your time is not tied up with this matter.
My time has been very tied up with this matter.
I know, but moving forward, you spent enough time on this already.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
Okay, we got our direction that we want to move on that. Let's move to item number 6 on our agenda, legislative update.
Okay, I've been at a number of hearings so far. We each got assigned bills, and I think I've been there the most. But anyway, I'm just going to cover 3 bills right now. 2 of them, the House and Senate companion bills, are the bills that we asked to be introduced at. Number 1, extend the term of the Oversight Coordinator from 2 years to 6 years. Number 2 would allow for us to go into executive meetings to discuss investigations that are introduced and ongoing. And number 4 clarifies about unfettered access to the correctional facilities by the Oversight Coordinator. And in the House bill, in the Senate bill, they moved it from 6 years extension to a 4-year extension. And they also added that at the request of PSD, that the Oversight Coordinator be subjected to Senate confirmation. But we have since been able to convince Senator Wakai and others that it's inappropriate that the Oversight Coordinator be confirmed. According to the legislative website and Article 5 of the Hawaii Constitution, it is really appointed positions such as directors, some deputies, boards, and commissioners. And so as I explained to Senator Wakai, that if they wanted to confirm anybody, it should be the policymakers, which is the commissioners. We should be confirmed. And so he has spoken to Senator Rhodes, and that's going to be taken out of the bill. It was taken out of the House version of it, or wasn't considered, I'm sorry, in the House version. With the House version, between the Senate bill hearing and the House bill hearing, in the Senate, the OIP and the Civil Beat Law Center testified against our ability to go into confidential meetings or executive session meeting to discuss investigations because they felt the language was too broad. And so I worked with both of them and we came to an agreement. And when it went to the House, I had written out that agreement in the form of a bill, and the House committee accepted that in total and have that language. And so we will be meeting with Senator Rhodes to explain what happened and ask for his consideration of including that language. Okay. Senate Bill 454 was introduced by Senator Wakai, and it is giving the commission the opportunity to review Department of Public Safety's budget and submit comments on that. And first, it would be as a budget is being drafted, that we could provide comments on that and they could be considered by public safety. If our concerns are not addressed or changes are not made, we are to report to the legislature and the governor about our disagreement. A second bill that was introduced in the House, HB 861, provided CSOC with oversight over the development and expansion of all correctional facilities. We testified against this bill. Developing correctional facilities is clearly the responsibility of public safety. And it appeared that this bill literally gave us veto power over the department, and we're very uncomfortable with that. We don't want to confuse operations with an oversight role. And besides that, it was totally inappropriate that the commission have that level of responsibility over development and expansion. So that bill was held. It was not passed out of committee. And those are the four that I'm going to cover for the purpose of our meeting. We're testifying on other things like inmate telephone calls, compassionate release, rehabilitative programs. But these are the bills that really involve us as a commission. Thank you. And Kristen has introduced herself to most of the legislators. Yeah, the majority of them. She's making an excellent impression. It is very clear that having Kristen as our staff person has certainly elevated us as a commission. And so we appreciate that, and we note that in our hearings, how much we appreciate that. And I've also noted in the hearings, because I've been asked about if we've had any resistance from public safety, and I've noted that Tommy Johnson has been very cooperative and responsive to us. So at this point, there's no concern there.
Any other updates from the other commissioners in terms of the legislature or questions? This has been or this continues to be a learning experience for all those of us that are. I know Martha has done a majority of our testimonies. That Ted has done some. I have done one.
Well, he works. I'm the
know.
only one that's totally retired. Ted works.
But we have been conversing with key chairs, and Kristen has been down there at the ledge as well, making herself known. And I think this is the first time we've had such a big presence at the Capitol. And of course, this is the first year that they've opened everything back up again.
And that we've had staff, which makes
and we
a
had
difference.
staff.
Yeah.
So I think we're having a great positive impact at this particular point, and making ourselves known and asking the questions for those who were unsure who we were and what we do. So we continue to move forward in the legislative arena. Thank you, everyone who has been participating. We're going to move forward now to the Oversight Coordinator's report.
All right, thank you. So for people who may not know, my name is Kristen Johnson. I'm the Oversight Coordinator, and by statute, I'm required to post a monthly report that covers any actions taken by the commission in addition to expenses. So first, I want to start with in custody deaths. Unfortunately, in the last month, there has been 4. So on Thursday, January 26, 2023, at 4:30 p.m., a person in custody, male, 70 years old, was found unresponsive on his bunk at Halinani, which is a work release program in Hilo. Medical staff did administer CPR and called 911. But at approximately 5:17 p.m., this individual was pronounced deceased at Hilo Medical Center. Because this was, oh shoot, what's the word?
Unaccompanied.
Thank you. An unaccompanied death. The Hilo Police Department,
Unattended, yeah.
unattended death. The Hilo Police Department is investigating along with the Public Safety Internal Affairs Unit, but no foul play is anticipated in this case. Additionally, on Sunday, February 5th, 2023, at 5:40 p.m., a person in custody, male, 33 years old, was found unresponsive in his cell by a correction officer conducting evening meal. This particular individual was housed with the Florida Department of Corrections as a part of an inmate swap program. Correction staff opened the cell door and began CPR at 5:53 p.m. and continued CPR until on-duty medical staff arrived. EMS was called at approximately 6:47 p.m. and the individual was pronounced deceased by a medical doctor. I do want to note here, this is an ongoing investigation. This is a very sad case, given that this individual was 33, which is pretty young. So the department is looking into that now. On Wednesday, February 8th, 2023 at 3:50 a.m., a person in custody, male, 38 years old, was found unresponsive in the infirmary by medical staff at Halava. Medical staff contacted hospice and the individual was pronounced deceased by hospice staff at 4:37 a.m. This individual is unfortunately terminally ill, but his family had been visiting him daily since the week before as his condition worsened. So I did want to give a special thanks to the Department of Public Safety and also Halava staff for their compassion in allowing a family member to continuously visit every day before this person had passed on. Lastly, on Tuesday, February 14th, 2023 at 2:28 a.m., a person in custody, male, 74 years old, was found unresponsive in the infirmary by medical staff at Halava. Medical staff contacted hospice and the individual was pronounced deceased by hospice at 3:28 a.m. So these are all extremely unfortunate. And I think particularly for the individuals who are 70 and older, I think that shows the importance of the bill that Martha had mentioned earlier regarding compassionate release. The electronic medical record has been down since June 2022. The Department of Public Safety did send an important update that the EMR is back up and running, which is fantastic news. The reason why I didn't change this report yet is because I've yet been able to confirm with facility staff. I just want to make sure that the ones who are actually using the system are in agreement that it is working. It's working as they need. So this, of course, will be a situation that I'm going to continue to follow up on, but I'm going to skip past it a little bit now because it's actually an agenda item further down on our agenda. So we'll come back to this. For actions taken, I'll go through this very quickly. We are still very involved with Going Home Hawaii as far as the Justice Involved Homeless intergovernmental collaboration goes. There's a reentry housing summit planned for August of 2023. I probably will pause on continuing to update on this because from now until August, it's really planning for that event. So I don't think there's probably too much to share. So just so you're aware, legislative priorities, Martha, thank you so much for covering that. In the report, which also is available on our website, there are links here where you can go to the Senate Committee on Public Safety and Intergovernmental and Military Affairs, and also a link to the House Committee on Corrections, Military, and Veterans. So if you're particularly interested in corrections, I highly recommend you follow both of these groups. Statutory framework on pretrial release presentation. So on February 26th, or I'm sorry, on February 6th, the legislature hosted an informational briefing specific to pretrial information. So they brought in an individual from the National Conference on State Legislatures. Martha Torney did attend. I watched virtually. It was a fantastic presentation, and that PowerPoint is available on our website.
And I just want to bring to your attention, I also handed out this document, which I was able to get one for Kristen also, but I think we should write them and ask if we can get more copies so we can distribute them further.
Is that on our website?
The
No,
PowerPoint.
Because it was handed out.
Okay.
And we could probably scan it to go on the website.
Yeah,
But,
I can scan it.
I tried to grab one for all the commissioners, but they didn't have that many.
Okay. The Prison and Jail Innovation Lab 2023 conference. So from February 3rd to February 4th, I went to a national conference that was put on by the Prison and Jail Innovation Lab at the University of Texas, Austin. Martha and Ted were supposed to attend. Unfortunately, they could not, especially with all the changes in our flight plans with the weather that was going on in Texas.
The ice storm in
the
Texas.
ice storm in Texas. But luckily, I at least got to go. I learned an incredible amount. I made sure to include the program events in this report, the link to that event, so you can kind of read more about it. But basically, there were 4 main sessions. And so it focused on basically, so the first event really focused on like the gloom of corrections, right? Like really horrific conditions across the country. And then it kind of shifted into what exists right now, as far as, when you're looking at 4 different correctional agencies that have oversight, how can they still be so bad with oversight, right? Like oversight, that's the whole point, is to make things better. And then we shifted into tools available to continue to push for change and go above and beyond what oversight has been in the past, and really thinking outside the box. And then the last session, which was really interesting, was talking about institutional culture and focusing on those specific changes. And so that's where one part that I thought was very interesting, and I'll go through this quickly, but they had a presentation on a department housing unit that had completely converted to the Norwegian model that we've heard about, we've talked about in previous meetings. And this unit it was completely gutted. They showed a little video on it, and really changed every unit into almost like a dorm room like setting. I had never seen anything like it in a corrections realm. So the other thing they did, they brought in 4 people at a time to make sure that, it was safe, that they could have everybody understand the expectations of being in that unit, but it wasn't focused on, come in and you make a mistake and you get kicked out. It was very much like trying to switch, like, this is what corrections should be all the way around. So inmates had dinner with staff every night. They all cooked together. I mean, it was just a really different experience all the way around. And what was also interesting about it is that they didn't poll just the low level individuals in the facility. They actually did a lottery system where anybody in the facility who was interested in being in that unit could sign up, and they randomly pulled names. So as they brought them in and continued, it was extremely impactful to see just the change in morale and the change in how individuals are being treated. But what was really powerful to me is that they had it was one officer and one captain who they had on Zoom talk about their experience. And it was funny at first, the officers talked about how, when the organization Amend had first come in to talk about this, they were kind of flicking her off and rolling their eyes and not taking it seriously whatsoever. But they were talking about how being in that unit and seeing the change in people had changed them. And so the one officer, which gave me chills, he said, I'm a better father, I'm a better husband, I'm a better person. And he talked about how meaningful his work was and how he really looked forward to going to work. It was just a totally different, because he talked about how before it was very much security and control and punish, and that was the focus area. And then he talked about his transition to now it's let's sit down and talk to these people. And it was really just a more therapeutic system. So to hear those direct responses from those individuals was just really, really powerful. And what I'm going to do now is,
Kristen, I'm just going to ask, can we combine number 7 to number 6? Because you're talking about this now. And number 7 is talking about doing a site visit,
yeah,
and just eliminate number 7.
yeah, I think that's fair.
After Kristen reported to us what had transpired and her enthusiasm, but especially when she talked about the implementation of the Norwegian model, which I believe is at Washington State Prison, that I suggested that it would be worth our while to go visit that, but to visit that with bringing at least one legislator with us. And this depends upon how much money we have this year. This year we have excess money compared to future years because of delay in hiring and things like that. So it will depend upon the budget, but we as a commission, perhaps at the next meeting, we'll have it more fleshed out about what it would look like and what it might cost. And the visit obviously would have to take place after legislative session, but be completed before June 30.
Yes.
And other people's comments on that, what your feelings about it, whether we should do a site visit?
Oh, all of us?
No.
Oh.
One commissioner, Kristen,
Or 2
a
commissioners. We
legislator,
could probably do 2.
2 commissioners.
Yeah, I think we can afford it.
Kristen, where's this facility?
That one in particular, if I'm remembering correctly, I believe it was Washington State.
Okay.
But there are other facilities. I was planning to reach out to Amend to get an idea of other facilities that they might recommend. Yeah. because they work with a lot of different jurisdictions. And then on that note, I was also going to reach out to Amend to see if they would be willing to come here and either present to the commission or do a legislative briefing or just something, because it was just so powerful. I was really taken back. And I think it would be worth them coming, especially because I think we have a lot of stakeholders who might be interested, especially with the new jail being built and everything else. So I was thinking about reaching out to them about that as well.
One of the things that I suggested also might be, working with UPW is very important for the success of corrections. And if we also had enough to bring a UPW representative so they could hear from staff who are working in this type of situation, how much it improves their working environment and their experience.
So you're
But,
thinking,
that I'm being very broad.
Well,
Ted?
I would suggest we think this through. My recollection is that there was a group from Hawaii that went to Europe to look at these models. Bob Hurst was part of it.
Yeah.
And I recall Greg Takayama was also part of it, but there was a larger group, and somebody like Amend funded it. So we can put a group together and a proposal. There's a possibility we can find some funding for this too.
Okay.
I think Mike.
yeah, I'm doing that as well, looking for funding. Good point, Ted.
Yeah, the other point is, I know there's a number of states that Amend has worked with. Oregon comes immediately to mind, but like you said, Kristen, if we can reach out to Amend to see who else has done this, it could be more than just one site that we could visit, especially if they're in the same geographical area.
That's a great point. Okay, I will do that. Thank you.
So we are all on the same page in terms of Christian looking forward possibility of us visiting Washington State. I'll just say Washington
Well,
State. Right now.
and maybe broader.
And
So
broader.
first, look for an alternative funding source.
Yeah.
Because then that could go beyond June 30th also, if we had an alternative funding source.
Okay.
Correct. Christian, on the HCCC, can you just
Yeah.
summarize real quick?
Yeah. So, okay. HCCC conditions update. Again, this is following a report from September 2nd, 2022. This report is available online. I'm going to run through it very quickly, but basically this report is looking at overcrowding. Currently, the facility is a 163% occupancy rate, which is still lower than September, but still quite high. Safety and security concerns. I talked about lack of basic services, suicide and safety watch, shipping containers, COVID housing, recreation, and visits. So please take a look at this report. Again, this is a follow-up to the September report. So if you haven't read the September report, I highly recommend you take a look. But I will continue to report out on these conditions. The only other thing I wanted to say is I'm kind of planning to do a larger follow-up report directly from the September report. So instead of having these hodgepodge monthly updates, you can see directly from September what has changed 6 months later, which I think is March, right? So keep an eye out for that. General office updates. The only office updates I really have is that we are moving forward with our interviewing processes for the reentry and diversion oversight specialist. We're really hoping to bring somebody on by the end of the month, but we'll keep you all posted about that, of course. But it would be great if by next meeting, we have a new staff member. And other than that, we have expenses for the preceding month, mostly travel expenses as always, going to the Big Island. And that is it for my report.
Commissioners, as you can see, it's very we're getting accustomed to not just having the oversight coordinator position filled and working, but very detailed and very great monthly reports. So, Thank you, Kristen, for the report and for the work you've done. Obviously, you're doing a lot. Those of you who are in here, I'd like to just say, you know, when you have questions concerning her report, we should get into the habit of reading it before we start the report, so you can have the questions for us when you provide testimony. But these are great accounts of things that are going on in the system as we find them and have been reported out, and that we've been working with public safety in trying to resolve these issues. And so thank you.
Oh, and one quick thing, sorry, Mark. We have a listserv, finally, we have a listserv. So if you want to get emails in regards to as soon as we post reports on the website, or as soon as we post any type of updates, we will shoot an email out to you. I promise it will not be overwhelming. I'll try to keep it down to monthly emails. But if you would like to sign up for that listserv, you can email our normal HCSOC email, which is hcsoc@hawaii.gov, and you can also find that email on.
Big reference to talking to individuals.
Yeah.
How is that arranged? You have a separate room where they come in to see you privately, or you just go out into the population and speak?
No, so when we have our investigative staff, because I should be more clear about this.
Yeah.
So the reports that I'm putting out about HCCC, I want to be clear, these are not specific investigative findings. These findings are me walking around, not looking at logbooks, not looking at cameras, not serving staff or serving people in custody, right? So this is just me doing a walkthrough, and these are all the things that I'm picking up and noticing, which highlights a lot of the problems, right? So when I talk about talking to individuals, what I'm doing, sometimes I have the officer pop their cell open and I'll talk to the 3 or 5 guys in the cell. Sometimes I talk through them through the door. It just depends on the situation. But no, I do not take them out or sit them down individually or interview them
Is the
individually.
staff with you when the inmates talk to you? There's a staff person with you within shot?
It depends, if there's an issue, if they're, usually what I'm talking to them about is I'm saying, hey guys, how many people are in there? Hey guys, do you guys have sheets? Now, if it's something where they want to talk to me about
Right.
something, then I kind of look at the officer, I'm like, hey, can you give us some space? And they'll move. But usually it's less about individual issues and more about just like in general, like it's affecting everybody. And that's only because I individually do not have the capacity to do the type of work that I desperately want to do. So that highlights the importance again of our investigative staff. Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to item number 9.
Yeah.
Okay. Update on the meeting with the Correctional Reform Working Group.
I was at a conference, so Ted, I didn't know if there were any updates, so I wanted to keep this on the agenda just in case.
Yeah, we did have another meeting with the governor. The working group met with the governor and along with me, and Tommy was there. But also present, the governor had invited some a group of people that he's been working with on community mental health issues. Dr. Michael Champion, who's the medical director for, I believe, the mental health division of the Department of Health. Ken Fink, who's a new director of health, was there. I forget who else was there. But the 2 takeaways. Number one, the governor seemed to be very interested in continues to be interested in a broader approach to community mental health and making sure there's enough resources so people don't have to go to jail to get treatment. And the second takeaway is that we discussed to some extent the Department of Public Safety's effort to reach out to the community through their contract with the University of Hawaii, and the governor seemed very interested in that. And he even said maybe we can have a big conference at the convention center where anybody in the public can come and express their views and and he was very interested in meeting with the people from the School of Architecture to see what the possibilities are to get community input. So that's the last contact I've had with the group.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Ted, is there going to be a follow-up meeting?
The governor said he would call a follow-up meeting, but from reading based on media reports, I think he might be a little distracted with other things right now.
Got it. Got it. Thank you, Ted. I appreciate it.
Martha?
Yesterday, one of the bills that was heard was HB 1442 relating to rehabilitation, which expands the criminal justice diversion program of the mentally ill offender. And Dr. Champion was there. He did an excellent presentation. He was very, very positive about what they're doing. He explained that most of the people that are referred to this program are not only mentally ill, but they are homeless. So there are a lot of barriers in front of them. But he did ask in the discussion of this, he's saying, you know what, we need to create more sites that people can report to, and we would need some more positions. So he's asking for help in that way. He was very well received by the committee.
Awesome.
Thank you, Martha.
Yeah, Martha, my understanding is that this program was adopted by the legislature a few years ago, and based on the results, this legislation to expand the program.
Yes, and that was the legislation that was heard yesterday.
Yes.
To expand it, yes.
Okay, thank you, Ted, for being part of that. Moving forward to number 10 on the agenda, discussion of the next steps in the planning of new OCCC. Do we have any comments on this?
We attended. Go ahead, Ted.
I think we need to report on a meeting we had. Martha and I and Kristen were in attendance. And Kristen, you might talk about how this meeting came about, the one we had regarding the briefing by the consultants on the new OCCC.
Yeah, so I spoke to Tommy and just let him know that I was really hoping to get just a breakdown of where everything was at, because especially being so new here, I wasn't familiar with like the history of the planning of the new jail and everything. And Tommy is totally on board, and it went from that to then inviting the consultants and DAGs, and Senator Wakai ended up getting involved because I believe I was talking to Senator Wakai about how I was appreciative that Tommy and I were going to meet about this new jail, and he asked if he could also join in the fun. So we ended up having it at Senator Wakai's office. Tommy's consultants, who the name is blanking on me.
Bettina.
Yes, yeah. So they presented, we had a really great conversation about the commission's concerns about the new jail, which was, if I'm remembering correctly, it was specific to ensuring that there's actual community input, and also ensuring, you know, that the consultants are really focusing on, you know, bare minimum federal standards, but also going beyond that and focusing on, you know, rehabilitative and therapeutic types of units. So I think it was a really good conversation. I think that this amend conversation flows perfectly as a follow-up to everything that we learned. But the department's PowerPoint slide is on our website under the meetings page. It's an attachment for this meeting, so you can go ahead and check that out. But I think the big thing is that as far as the design of the facility, nothing will be designed or finalized until funding is approved. So I think there's a lot of potential flexibility there, that the commission could be involved with ensuring that it's therapeutic. But yeah, I think that, Ted, did you have more to add?
Yeah, the other big concern for me, at least, is the number of beds and the type of beds that are being planned. I continue to look at the numbers. I've reviewed the population projections and the program report that the consultants put out, and just some very specific numbers in there, which I think may be too high, and there's a real potential for reducing the size of the facility. Now, one concern I have is whether there'll be room for discussion on the size of the facility. As part of the presentation, the department's proposal for additional funding was included in the presentation, and the proposal is $15 million for the upcoming fiscal year, and for the purpose of developing the RFP. Now, I think issues like how large a facility, what the footprint's going to be, number of beds, et cetera, need to be resolved before we go into RFP development. So that's one concern I have. So I'm still well, you know, the commission took a position a year ago on the funding, additional funding for the project, and we were not convinced that the funding was appropriate at that time. I'm still not convinced that the funding is appropriate. The additional funding is appropriate. So I did do some follow-up questions to the department, and I haven't received a response yet.
Mike?
My concern, it keeps coming up, is that if we have houseless folks, we have folks suffering from mental illness and substance abuse, and they don't go to jail, they shouldn't go to jail for treatment until they commit some kind of offense. And we should also have, in my view, we shouldn't have cash bail unless it's absolutely needed. So the default is jail, and I think that's wrong. So I hope that I agree with Ted 100%. We need to wrestle with that and not build something. If we build anything, it should be small and horizontal, not large and a silo. And I've said that before. I'm sure you're all tired of hearing me say it, but it's very real. And I agree with you, Ted.
Yeah, you know, I keep going back to the population projections from when was it? A year and a half ago now, where the consultant who did the projection said that if certain reforms were adopted by the legislature, the size of the facility could be reduced, and he gave a specific number based on the reforms, that the proposed reforms that he knew about. So I think we need to continue to pursue this. Things like Martha just talked about with the community diversion program, other reforms, I think, could impact the size of the jail.
Yes. One thing I will say, I believe that this meeting that we did have at Senator Wakai's office did open the door between us and public safety to continue to have discussions about the development of the facility. So I appreciate that.
And
well, one other thing, we did talk about the work that the School of Architecture is going to be doing, and my understanding is that the commission will be notified and invited, and we can invite other people who may be interested in joining the discussion with the School of Architecture. So, Kristen, did I get that right, or what specifically is the play here?
We received a letter from Public Safety inviting us to provide a contact person to work with them on this. I don't have the letter in front of me. Sorry, Ted, but we did receive notification from Tommy inviting us to the discussion.
Could you share that letter?
Yes.
It's a very short letter. I mean, what I'm really interested in knowing, what is the scope of services that the School of Architects is supposed to be performing?
That's a question that's for which I'm still awaiting a response.
Okay.
let me make a comment. And I've been saying this all along regarding the jail population. You have to educate the entire people in the system, from the police all the way up to the courts. You know, the courts, the judges put them in jail. So all these other factors without the judges, in the end, who makes a decision to put them in jail, may help a little, but actually, you know, I've been saying that judges have to be educated. And I might suggest that every year that I know of, judges have this judicial conference in the state of Hawaii, where all judges, trial judges, appellate judges attend. It's an educational conference. And, you know, I would suggest that, and there's an educational committee that plans the program, which I was on a long time ago. I would suggest that we try to make a presentation to all the judges, you know, and generally, as Mike knows, judges want to keep it closed because they want to freely discuss, you know, judicial philosophies and things like that. Mike's smiling, but at least, you know, just to present the problem, and everybody in the system should be on board with the goal of changing the system from punitive to rehabilitative. And so that's my suggestion is getting the police, the lawyers, public defenders, prosecutors, judges, and there's the other pieces in between, like you folks pointed out.
So Ron, if you could send me, if you still have any contacts to that group or that conference, if you could send me anything that I can definitely ask if the commission would be able to do a presentation. In addition to that, and Tommy, bear with me because I haven't contacted you about this yet, but Justice Wilson also reached out asking to tour OCCC. He was asking if I could also go with him. And so I think that's an important start to get him in there. And but yeah, I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, he'll be in Justice Nakayama retiring this year, so they're coming on the Big Island on 24th for the bar to, I wouldn't say honor them or give a reception. So I know Justice Wilson may have some time now after he's retired. It's just,
And the interest is there.
yeah,
The
it's
interest
just
has been
like
there for
Mike
years.
knows that's one of his passions.
He better. He retires in April,
Yeah.
and mandatory.
So as we continue to talk about the building of the new jail and Ron, that was good information that you just gave, and I just wanted to update. I have set up meetings with Judge Browning to introduce him to Kristen,
Yeah.
and to really start the discussion. And within that meeting will be Judge Viola
Good.
and Aaron Harbinson to discuss the Act 179 with the judge and really begin a conversation on pretrial best practices. Yeah, and start that off. So I'm excited about that, and it's really exciting because Judge Browning is also credited as part of the building the foundation for the juvenile justice reform
The
15 years ago.
Juvenile Justice Alternatives Initiative, or Detention Alternatives Initiative. And he was someone, because I worked with him very closely through that process, and you could see his attitude changing. And he, you know, in the beginning, he was resistant. He wasn't quite sure what this is about, but he was handed by the CJ, you're going to be doing this. And then he evolved and became the biggest supporter. And as a result, that's why we have so few kids incarcerated in Hawaii, is because of the Juvenile Detention Alternatives Initiative. And he was a big part of making that happen.
So we're excited about having that meeting, probably about in March, early March. So just wanted to make that shout out to everyone about that. We have any more discussion on this?
Just one more, Mark.
Yes.
My initial question on the School of Architecture was if members of the public wanted to be involved in this, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, we can ask more. I don't have the contents of the letter in front of me. I know it was for one of us to be a participant, perhaps.
Or contact.
And then we can refer that to Tommy when his agenda item comes
But it was a
up.
very quick and short letter.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't give much explanation.
Yeah. I understand.
So if anybody out there listening wants to, feels they have some substantial input to give, how do they get themselves heard?
I don't know if they're there yet.
Can they
We're gonna-
contact the
Well,
commission?
I think at this point we'll have them contact the commission as we look forward to more information from public safety. Ted.
Okay,
And again, that email is on our website, but it's also hcsoc@hawaii.gov.
All right, we want to move on to item 10, 11.
Art. I think a film group, Tony Alto, are considering a substantial film on restorative justice. And whatever he does well and thoroughly. So we need to be real aware of that lens that he's gonna look at everything that we're doing through.
Mhm.
And I just can't, I'm impressed, I think Kristen, we met with him and he's a good guy.
Yeah.
And he's did it, I think he had 2 million hits on his one on houselessness here. So he knows what he's doing.
Definitely.
You want the item number 11, update from PSD regarding electronic medical record.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you guys ready?
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Tommy. Thank you.
Okay, let me just turn this up a little bit. Okay. So the electronic record system is not completely fixed. The vendor is still working on 2 issues involving slowness and performance that affect some of our providers. And some of the providers haven't been able to access the system, which the vendor is working on with our IT staff. We're going live using different sections by facility instead of all at once because we don't want the system to crash. We currently have access to electronic data through September 2001. Our IT folks procured a vendor that was able to store the data from September 2021 to April 2022 in binary format. And our EMR vendor and our IT staff are working on extracting the data into a readable format. While that's going on, we're still looking at replacing the system as a whole. At this point, we're trying to recover as much data as we can and then look at purchasing a better system, more modern. When they bought this system initially, they bought they went with procurement, which was the lowest vendor, which is not always the best, unfortunately, but that's what happened. And now we're kind of we're kind of paying the price for that. So now we're looking at a completely new system to replace the current EMR system. But we've been working with the vendor, and it's been challenging to work with the vendor because they're on the mainland, back and forth. And so some of the issues was when the vendor was updating the system, that's when we were in our peak hours for operations of the system, which meant some of the data that went in got garbled. So we made adjustments on their end and our end for when they do the updates, which is when the system is is being used the least, which is after 10 o'clock at night, to be perfectly honest, because there's not that much going on then. So it's still a work in progress, but it is frustrating for us, to be honest with you. But we're trying the best we can, and we are trying to look at a new system now.
Tommy, I have a question. You mentioned migrating the data from the old system to the new system.
Right.
Did you imply that some of the data may be lost?
We don't know yet because they're still trying to get it, still trying to see if they can get it from a binary format to a readable format. But it is a possibility that some of the data could be lost. We're trying all we can to try to recover as much data as we can.
And so if there are active medical records where some data may be lost, is there a backup plan then for re-entering that data into the new system?
Right now, we're doing manually, we're doing the memos and scanning the memos. And it's very time consuming and frustrating for the medical staff, I can tell you. And I think Christian spoke to them and they'll tell you it is very frustrating, but it's what we have and it's the best we can do for right now.
Yeah, because I mean, medical records, they have to be complete.
That's correct. That's
Yeah.
correct. Particularly for service providers. And when you send somebody off for specialty care in particular, they really need to be complete.
Yeah. It's too bad this couldn't be an inmate work line to scan them.
I wish.
Was there any additions to your budget requests to help fix this in the future?
We had the money already in the budget to try to fix not just this. the system is part of our overall electronic record system. So we have money in the budget to replace not just this, but we're replacing offender track. It's a Motorola system that Ted and Martha would recall that they had told us in 2025 they will stop support. So we're proceeding with replacing the entire system. The medical records is only one portion of it. The offender track is the bigger portion, and we have HPA's database as well.
And commissioners, just so you're aware, I asked Tommy, which he will get when his vendor figures it out, but I asked him how many specific records may have been lost in addition to what time frame of records may have been lost. So I will update you all when I receive that.
Yeah.
Kristen, this has to have happened in other states or other jurisdictions, and there has to be a way to cover this. Do we have a national center we can talk to, or a best practice, or how can we help Tommy and us figure it out? Because the health records are critical, and I'm worried about liability, and I worry about people getting sicker. And what's your take, and or what's Tommy's? How can we best recover?
Oh, go ahead, Tommy.
Oh, well, no, go ahead. You first, Christian, please.
You gotta speak up, Tommy. I got old ears, buddy.
I was just gonna say real quick, I haven't heard of this happening in other jurisdictions. That most certainly doesn't mean that it hasn't happened. At least I haven't heard of this happening for so long, I guess is how I should phrase that. And there are some different resources I can reach out to for other agencies in different jurisdictions just to ask. But I think Hawaii's procurement process is also really different than other jurisdictions. I don't know how beneficial, I'm just being honest, like I don't know how beneficial it would be even to see how other jurisdictions handle that, because there are really, really specific processes here. But I'll defer to Tommy.
Does Gavin have anything to say? Is Gavin in the loop on this?
He was on.
He's
Yeah,
on.
he's still on.
I mean, we gotta get Makavala, we gotta get 8 eyes on this, not just dance in the dark. I'm really frustrated, and I don't want to be angry. I'd just rather do it right.
Tommy,
Gavin, what do you say?
He went, here
Yeah.
comes Gavin.
He went away.
No, he just turned it on. There he is.
Hey, sorry. Yeah, it's a very frustrating process. What is your question? Sorry.
There has to be an international and national resource. This can't be just a singleton. And who can help us do it? How do we help Tommy? We're the Oversight Commission. I'm not here to criticize, I'm here to solve the problem. And I'm asking you, what's your take? You have a solution?
Are you asking me or Gavin?
What's that?
Are you asking me or Gavin? Or both?
Anybody, I'm sending up a flare.
Okay, so here's the return. We're doing all we can to bring the system back up with the vendor.
Yeah.
It looks like we're gonna have to replace the system, so we're moving down that road, but parallel to that, trying to get a new system in place, we have to try to recover as much data as we can, and then figure out which data we lost, and can that data be reconstructed from the information we have and the different providers that we've been dealing with. So it's not for a lack of trying on our part. It's not for a lack of not working 24/7 on this. We are. The bottom line is the department bought a system that was not top of the line, and now we're paying the price for it. It's just that simple. And now we're trying to fix it as much as we can, recover as much data as we can, and at the same time look for a new system. So at this time, all I could ask the commission to do is be patient, but stay on us on this so we can continually move forward, get the new system in place, recover as much data as we can, report out on what data we couldn't recover, and what our efforts would be to reconstruct that data if we can. I hope that makes sense.
It doesn't make sense to me. You make sense to me, but we should be talking to Queens or Straub and say, what would you do if this happened to you? Where's your resources? Can you loan us someone? I mean, this is where we get a bunch of people together and solve the problem. I can't believe this is a singleton again. Maybe I've got something wrong. I am not a doctor. You know, so, but you hear what I'm saying, Tommy? Are you,
No, I fully understand, but I can tell you this, the issue started with the procurement system, and the way the procurement system is, where you have to go with the lowest bidder unless you can justify going with a bidder that's not the lowest bidder. I wasn't here in 2008 when they bought this new system, but I could assure you, if I was here, I would argue for a better system and one that's more comprehensive than just the cheapest one off the shelf. But I can't speak for those folks that were here at the time. I really can't.
my suggestion is call the head of Straub and Queens and say, what the heck? This is affecting our people. How many prisoners do we have? 5,000, 6,000?
4,200.
4,200?
4,200 total jail, prison, pretrial, parole violators.
Okay, anyway.
Nuts.
Tommy, for the new system, is it procurement that's kind of holding things up?
No, I'll let Gavin answer to the where we are with that issue, but I can tell you before they bought the cheapest system out there, the lowest bidder.
Right.
But I can also tell you this, Straub and Queens, they don't buy the cheapest system out there. They don't
Right,
have the same
about for the
restrictions
new
we have.
For the new system, like what
Yeah.
is, because this has been going on, I mean, this is 8 months now. And
Yep.
I've said it before publicly that if a hospital, if their electronic medical record went down for an hour, it would be a crisis. So the fact that this has gone on for 8 months, I hear you when you're asking for patience, but also it's been 8 months. So I'm trying to get a better understanding for the new system. What is it procurement? Is it state processes? Like what is I'm just not understanding, I think.
Do you already have a contract for the new system?
I'll let Gavin, could you chime in?
Sure. Let's see, we went through a RFI process, the year before. We're currently going through an RFP for the new system. It's called the Corrections Collaboration Project. This includes both the offender management system replacement as well as the electronic health record.
And so the RFP is still under development, or has the RFP been published and are people responding?
No, so there's been various phases, and we went through a final demonstration. The scoring was completed. We went through the final demonstration. There is an addendum that was issued to the RFP. I believe it was Monday. And then we have a deadline on that. I don't have the specific date, but it is in February, with the request for best and final offer. Once we get that, then the RFP will be finalized.
The RFP or the selection will be finalized?
The selection to the RFP will be finalized.
So, Gavin, you're going to have somebody to actually install the system? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it'll be a new system, a much better system, hopefully. Crossing fingers, depends on who wins out. And we are hoping that the new system will be installed within a year.
Okay, so real,
Wait a minute, Ted?
Yeah.
you want to say something?
Yeah, Gavin, when you said a new system's going to be installed in a year, is it because you have to install the entire system and the medical records will be part of a big system? Is there any way to speed up the installation of the medical records part?
So the department is prioritizing the electronic health record component of it. They will be having to link with offender track when they first start. This is from what I'm gathering from the current RFP. And the issue is we're replacing 2 systems. So one will have to go first, and then link to the new system, whether it's on the EHR side or the OMS side. So at the present moment, we're looking at prioritizing the EHR side of it.
And that's going to take a year to get the EHR up and running.
Potentially, depending on who wins out on the bid, a lot depending on the vendor. Some of the vendors have more out of the box functions that are tailored to NCCHC and ACA accreditation standards, which we absolutely need.
Sure.
Depending on the vendor, it may take a while to develop templates and workflows. So, crossing fingers, hoping for an outcome that will benefit healthcare.
Thank you, Gavin.
Any more discussion?
Oh, I have a lot to say, but I'm just biting my lip right now. I feel like there's got to be a better system.
I agree.
We're not dealing with widgets, we're dealing with human beings, and some of them are dying in our custody.
Yeah.
And it's this whole thing is, I'm not blaming anybody, it's just troubling. And I think part of what we do is voice frustration and try to figure out, I don't know if Queens or Straub had this, I would hope they would be able to help us. I've said that too many times today.
I feel your frustration. We've been actively working on this project since I took over in 2019. We initially started looking at a shared system, and we had meetings with DHS and DOH, seeing what kind of system we could come up with. There was a potential deal on the table back then, but the pandemic hit and all federal funding went elsewhere. So that dried up, and now we're working on this project. So it is hopeful that we'll get a system that'll meet our healthcare needs. It is unfortunate that we're stuck with this system right now. Yeah, I feel the frustration.
Okay, so real quick.
Well,
Go ahead.
one more thing, Mark. Gavin, Sophie, I hope I'm saying her name right, Graylap from Hawaii Harm Reduction has posted a couple of comments in the chat box. Would you be able to take a look real quick at the chat? She asked a question and see if you have any kind of response to that. It's a good question, I think.
Yeah, I can chime in and just summarize my question.
Please. Yes.
Hi, sorry, I'm Dr. Sophie Grallop. I know it's a weird last name. What I was thinking, and I'm not sure what you have in place. I know that there's a lot of, I know there's a lot of things in the works, and it will take time and money and a lot of people deciding. So obviously this is being worked on, but it's clearly going to be a little while. So what I'm wondering is, I'm just kind of problem solving. Is there a way to at least do like a brief paper intake with, your current inmates and your incoming inmates, and you could maybe at least ask them to self-report if they have any chronic conditions? That way you can, you could build a real simple Excel spreadsheet or something just to kind of keep tabs on who has conditions that need to be managed or kept an eye on. Or I don't know if you already have something like this in place, but I'm hearing a lot about trying to problem solve the system, which is obviously important. But in the meantime, I'm assuming there is no system. And yeah, so I'm just wondering if there's any thought on how to address that in the meantime while you're waiting to get this new system.
Hi, Sophie. Thanks for the question. So we've always had a paper backup system in place in case the EMR went down. And we've used it during downtimes, during upgrades and whatnot. We weren't used to such a prolonged period of downtime. So a lot of adjustments have been made. We have, I guess, server space for a specific healthcare drive where data on chronic conditions and whatnot are kept on a shared file, confidential for healthcare that we maintain.
Thank you, Gavin. Ted, anything, any further questions?
No,
Any final comments? So Tommy, thank you, and Gavin. When I'm listening to what the conversation has been and what the commissioner's concerns have been, really looking at, one, folks are planning on a new system. Two, we are currently trying to fix what we have now, recover data, and manage the crisis as you can. My final question would be, and kind of going off of what Sophie said, are we still able to provide the necessary care for the population by hand without the data system in working order?
We are working within our system. It's not, after having gone from paper to electronic and getting used to this electronic system over the years, a lot of what we used to do with paper, it's going back to paper. It's slowed certain processes down, and it's made things a little difficult in doing that transition. Hopefully going back into the EMR system as we're about to right now, we'll be able to transition smoothly back into that EMR and electronic system.
Thank you, Gavin. No further questions. We'll move on. Thanks, Tommy. Any final words, Tommy? You good?
Just a couple of things. I wanted to clarify some things with Ted. The money we're requesting, the $25 million beginning July next fiscal year and $10 million the following fiscal year is to complete the planning and design, but also the construction management of the project as well. We're not at the point where we're writing an RFP. We would have to determine, Ted is right, we'd have to determine the size, facility, bed space, that kind of stuff. None of those details have been worked out completely yet. So I did agree that at the meeting we had in Senator Wakai's office, we agreed to provide quarterly updates to the commission, which means the commission is free to come to the meetings we set up. I can work that out with Christian if you guys want. And depending on sunshine law issues, you can send somebody else to the meetings as well. We want to be partners with the commission and the community in this process. And with respect to others that may be interested to provide input, the commission is free to provide the information to those parties to UH if you want, or refer them to UH, and then they can begin the dialogue and include them in these community discussions that they plan to have. They plan to have a lot of talk story sessions around the island. And so those groups or individuals that may be interested should attend those. The governor meets about once every 2 weeks to once every month, Ted, with the subcommittee, with Bob Merston, those guys. And I haven't got the schedule for the next meeting, but I'm sure the next meeting will take place before the end of this month. And then at those meetings, the last meeting we had, I think Marion Suji was also there because we were also discussing issues about possible diversion for those with mental health issues. So that's where we stand. Unless you guys have any questions, that's all I have.
thanks for the clarification, Tommy.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I had to review, I looked at the slides and that clarifies the slides on the next steps.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to item number 12, a visit to OCCC. We are planning to go this afternoon. We wanted to make an announcement and we want to discuss. OCCC is a very large facility.
I had a discussion with Mark about this because both of us are very familiar with OCCC. So most likely we're going to be dividing it into 2 visits. And today we will be going to see the modules, the secure part of the facility, which also has basically all the operations. It's where you have maintenance, it's where you have the kitchens, where you have the medical staff, mental health unit, the women's unit, the men's unit. And then we'll do another visit to visit the other less secure part of the facility. It's just too big to do in one day.
Yeah. Any questions from the commissioners on what we hope to do there? We really want to be able to, this first visit is going to set the stage on how we go in there and look at the key components of the jails in terms of mental health services, medical services, operations, overall safety of the facility, the correctional environment, particularly how the women are being housed and programs in general, visitation, yeah, and any other concerns that we may come across in terms of the staff that we see. Yeah.
One thing I think as a commission we should discuss is, well, after this visit, we should be coming up with a document of some sort that reflects our observations that then should be posted on our website. So Kristen, maybe that as each of us go through, if we have notes, we can put them into a more of a Word format. So it's not just bullets or notes. Yeah, have what we're saying, and then we can forward them to you and maybe create that document that could then be posted. Yep.
And this will set the stage for what the other visits will look like as well. And every time we go there, so there's consistency that these sections that I've been mentioning, that Martha has mentioned, will be reported on and summarized in terms of our observation.
So Tommy, I have a question. Can we bring in like a small notebook or something to be writing down our notes?
Yep, you can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have a more important question for Tommy. Tommy, given the construction that's going on in Dillingham, where do we park?
You can park, the entrance to the parking lot is still available to come in.
Okay,
So when you come in, you can either go to you go straight down, go around to the right and park in the guest parking. If that's full, then there's that parking area on the left-hand side. So if you let me know what time you think you're gonna be there and how many cars you're gonna have, I can at least let the front gate know, hey, you got about 4 cars coming in with the commission members, make sure there's some place for them to park.
thank you.
I'll text you, Tommy.
All right, that's good.
I'm really excited for this tour. I think it's extremely important. I just want to make it somewhat clear to the public that I am one of the few staff members who work for the commission right now, in addition to our amazing assistant George. And so there's going to be a lot of information that come from these tours. And we are going to be posting that information, but I just want it to be understood that without our investigators, like, we're going to do the absolute best we can. But as far as some of the follow-up or really coming up with recommendations to fix these things, that might take a little time.
That's why I use the term our observations.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I just wanted to throw that out there. That, you know, this is going to be a huge learning process for me and for the office and all of us. And so just please bear with us as we figure out how to prioritize these issues and start really making change.
Item number 13 on our agenda is open up for any public comment on the discussions that we just had. So digital hands, physical hands. You want to stand and identify yourself?
Yes, my name is Jennifer Merkel. I'm with Hawaii Pacific University.
I just want to ask, can people on the internet hear her? Step a little closer, because here's the microphone.
Can you hear me now? No, that's cell phone thing.
Ted, can you hear Ted?
I can hear.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you. I know I have like 2 minutes under the rules, so I'll be very quick. But my name is Jennifer Merkel. I'm an assistant professor at Hawaii Pacific University, and I worked 25 years in corrections. My field of interest is corrections and, of course, reentry and alternatives to our justice system, and perhaps alternative ways of addressing behaviors that don't align with community mandates. Nonetheless, I have one issue that I came with to talk about, and I think it integrates several things. So I'll start with that, and then I'll go through the comments I wanted to offer as you went along. So the concern I had that I came with was I feel like after reviewing everything that's on the website, and I did have a short opportunity to meet and talk to Kristen this morning, I have a concern about the standards that are being used to assess the corrections department. So when I actually worked at the Federal Detention Center here for 7 years. And when I worked there, I interacted with Tommy Johnson and a number of other individuals on their staff. We did tours of their facilities. We were looking at ways to help them adopt. At that time, we were looking at the ACA standards and looking to their facilities to be accredited. I know the state rejected that.
It was too staff intensive, that's.
It
why.
was staff intensive
Yeah.
and it was too cost intensive. They didn't even want to pay for the training just to get the baseline training for the staff. So my concern is, as we go on, I read the report that you alluded to earlier on HCC. I have a couple of concerns about that report. That report itself relied on standards that aren't actually standards for running a correctional facility. Those are contract measures that the federal government uses when they're contracting for detention space.
But they
So
are
there's-
based on ACA standards.
They're ultimately based on ACA
Yeah.
standards, but ACA standards reflect the entire environment. Contract standards reflect only those standards that they can assess through the contract as part of the RFP. So I'm just saying, I don't know I'm not aware of how the committee went about determining that those were the standards that were to be used as the
We haven't
baseline.
yet.
See, I didn't think you had. And I also don't know, I was going to ask, when the Department of Public Safety was made aware of what standards they were going to be held accountable for, and were they given a transition time to ensure that they could come into compliance with those standards? So my question is really an entry into a larger, broader issue is maybe it's appropriate for this commission to consider what standards should we adopt? There's actually many standards out there, not just ACA, and ACA has been recently criticized for being somewhat out of date. You know, it's become a big organization and it's hard to get changes adopted. So the other gentleman, Gavin, I think was somebody that responded to, alluded to the correctional health care
Yeah.
standards. You know, there's a lot of great standards out there, and it seems to me that one role that the commission as the oversight body could provide is adopting standards that we want to hold public safety accountable for. That then gives them the power to go back to the legislature and say, hey, we need to be able to train staff on what these standards are. We need to be able to have a fund to come into compliance with these standards, and then they get a transition time. You know, maybe we could prioritize first health and safety issues, security, correctional related issues, and then broaden the standards to things that are beneficial.
Yeah,
but
I think
perhaps
you're
less-
preaching to the choir. Most of us have extensive correctional experience. And Kristen also has experience in 2 other jurisdictions of oversight. I agree with you. We need to adopt standards. We also need to adopt rules. Rules take a lot of work to do. We don't have the staff yet to help us do that.
Right.
And it would be more than just the ACA standards. But as a department, we used ACA standards from the time they were first published in doing that. And heard from previous meetings that they seem to have fallen by the wayside, that the department, in fact, some people weren't even aware of standards.
I'm well aware.
And
they're
so
not
we
aware of the
do-
changes or the
Yeah.
modifications or
And we want to help them come up to date. But again, I agree with you 100% that we have to come up with these standards. And I think probably that would be part of our rulemaking process. It's going to take us a while. So right now, again, as I mentioned, that we're going to share our observations. That is what Kristen is doing right now. She is not doing a thorough standard review of the facilities because she doesn't have the capability at this point. She knows it, how to do it,
Right.
but she doesn't have the capability because she's by herself, except for an executive assistant at this point.
So they're being judged by conditions that aren't really made clear to them. And so I think
Yeah.
that's a little challenging for an oversight committee. The other issue that kind of relates to this are is your visit to these facilities being considered limited meetings, which they do meet the definition for. I know in my practice, we had committees and states and county commission members come in all the time. The way they handled that under their sunshine laws was that the tour itself, the commissioners agreed not to discuss their observations during the tour. They could still interact with public safety personnel, but not with each other. And then they did a debrief that was recorded afterwards. And they talked about this is what I saw, this is what I felt. You know, I walked in there and I felt scared. I can't tell you why, but it felt, because these are more like social climate surveys that you're doing. You're just getting a feel for the place, like what jumps out at you for concern. So that was one way that I have seen that other
We
agencies
tried,
have
we were
gotten away.
denied.
Well, that's unfortunate.
But I appreciate,
Yeah.
but I appreciate, you know.
We
the-
did,
Yeah,
we did.
yeah.
rather than trying
discussed
to
that.
move the mountain of legislation.
Yeah.
Right.
The third thing I observed was the RFP. I would recommend that the commission consider asking public safety when they are going through large requests for purchases, that they involve you at least in the review before it is made public. So for example, for this EMR portion of the RFP that's obviously out there, just recently was amended, does it include a backup to a secondary site that is, you know, not affected if this original site goes down? Does it include emergency protocols to make it available through some other means? Does it have like a secondary system that the contractor will bring in if the original system goes down? And you know, those are the kinds of questions, of course, that you'd want to make before the RFP is out with the vendors. So I would just suggest that maybe that's an opportunity for you also to provide oversight, is in the contracting before it actually goes out for bid, so that you can make sure your concerns are addressed as you go through. Back to the HCC report that was done, a number that's thrown around a lot is overcrowding, and I haven't had worked in the department, and of course you all working, you know, those are numbers that are played with. Rated capacity versus actual capacity. Are you talking about the rated capacity was originally built, or as it's been reconstructed?
Okay,
You
we
know,
have
how
a
many beds
report
you
on
have?
that.
Huh?
In 2000, the Hawaii Correctional System Oversight, I'm sorry, the Population Management Commission was charged with coming up with the capacities. We have to revisit that, and our new law requires that we revisit that. But those capacities, we worked with consultants, and it was primarily Pulitzer and Bogart. Curtis Pulitzer trained me, and I'm the one that worked with the facilities and the commission, or the committee, I forget which it was, coming up with that. And so they were done with ACA standards primarily. Again, this was 2001. We do, in our mandate, we have to revisit that. We are not at that point yet to revisit. But during the COVID, we also did COVID capacities, which was basically a desk exercise by revisiting them, and those are available on our website.
So
Yeah, Martha, excuse me, Martha, my recollection is that because we didn't have staff and we couldn't actually go to the facilities to do an actual review, we agreed that we would simply continue the Population Management Commission's capacities, and that legally under Hawaii law is the official capacities.
Yeah.
But real quick, I know what you're talking about, design capacity versus occupancy capacity. So we go by design capacity, which is what it was originally designed to hold.
No, we go by the.
No. That's not correct, Kristen.
When I'm
Kristen, but we go by the 2001 report. That's our operating capacity.
So then I should change the numbers here.
Yeah.
Because I've been going by design since September.
It's operating capacity.
That probably needed some clarification and maybe definition for in the report. So what capacity you're using and how we adopt it.
And where it comes from.
And where it comes from, exactly. And then my final comment, and then I swear I'll be quiet, is I really loved hearing, I'm very familiar with the Norwegian model. The students that are in my class, we tend to have a very international group of individuals, even in our criminal justice program. And so we look at that very thoroughly. I love the amended program, and I'm wondering if the contractors that Tommy Johnson referenced for the OCCC project, the School of Architecture, amend, and the interested parties shouldn't have a conversation about OCCC being a multi-use facility. You know, one of the big hits is the in and out of homelessness and low-level crimes. We have no reentry facilities, so we use OCCC that allows individuals to go out and work during the day and come back at night. So you could actually, utilize it as a multi-use facility that attacks both pretrial and post-sentence or end of sentence reentry processes, as well as getting those offenders that just maybe need a community health component instead of like a probation, more of a community health oversight. One of the things we are doing is a 2023 Crime in the Chinatown Downtown Neighborhood Roundtable event. And we have Tom Brady as one of our participants. And he was talking about the need in this community for more centralized case management of those individuals who are really low-level criminal offenders, but also have maybe comorbid mental health and drug abuse diagnoses, who need some sort of centralized case management. And I wonder if OCCC, with its location and now the ability to actually modify how what that facility looks like, wouldn't be a perfect place for that type of diversionary oversight. You know, if we consider it a multi-use facility rather than strictly a jail. So those were my comments, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else on the in Zoom that would care for some remarks at this time?
No hands.
Seeing none.
Oh, our next meeting.
Our next meeting is Thursday, March 16th on the island of Kauai. Yeah. Our website will be posted in terms of please.
What?
Please.
Yeah,
Will it be at KCC or somewhere else?
for the meeting.
Yeah.
It's at it's on the website. It's at a local community college.
Okay,
If I'm
so-
remembering correctly, but the entire schedule, the update has, sorry, the website has been updated. It has the entire schedule for the rest of the year
Good.
Okay.
with addresses. Yeah.
And I hope everybody is aware that we put a lot of information on our website, including correspondence that we have like with legislators and with the departments. So you can find a lot of additional information on the website.
With no further announcements.
Okay, what time do we muster at OCCC?
Do people want to get
Well-
lunch now or skip lunch? I figured that we're going to be at OCCC for approximately 3 hours.
I would say that let's look at it's 10:40 right now. We can look at 12 o'clock.
Yeah, and get something to eat before we go out there.
Meet
Is that
up at
okay,
12,
Ted?
meet 12, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what time again?
12
Meet
o'clock.
At noon at the facility, and that will
That's
allow
good.
us to get some lunch.
Sure, can do.
Hey, this is Tommy. How many cars, so I can see if we can make sure you guys have parking set aside?
One for me.
One, I have Ron with me, so it's 2,
And then we can ride with Mark.
3.
3.
I'm gonna talk to Mark. I may have to pass. I just had a legal
Okay.
surrogate.
At the most, it would be 4.
Got it. Okay, I'll let them know. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you, everyone who's been here and listening to us and for your commitment, your dedication, and your passion for the cause. And so we'll see you. We'll be on Oahu in a few more months, but it will be Zoom
Yes, wherever we are.
wherever we are. Thank you so much and have a great rainy day. Aloha.
I'm a legal
Aloha.
surrogate for someone that just passed away, Rob, and I just got a phone call. Not sure I can go today. And I go to that, I've been to that